I wanted to travel the world. It was just that simple.
Close your eyes and imagine living a life you love, unapologetic and unbothered, free from daily microaggressions from Karens and Kens, free from the fear of police brutality and systemic racism. Wouldn't that feel amazing? Now open your eyes. What if I told you that it's possible? Hear inspiring stories and get the actual blueprints from brothers and sisters of the diaspora who are living out their wildest dreams abroad. You've heard the term, now be inspired by the movement. I'm Krishan Wright, and this is Blaxit Global. I'm excited to welcome to the Blaxit Global podcast, spiritual healer and energy guru, Pernell Bobby, who's joining us today from Medellin, Colombia. Welcome to Blaxit Global, Pernell.
What's going on?
So I've been excited to speak with you. I follow you on Instagram. You are just pure energy and joy and just a vibe. So before we get into your spiritual journey and evolution, I wanted to start at the beginning. I know you hail from Connecticut, so wanted to talk a little bit about that time period in your life.
Sure. I went to college, almost like every parent wants their kid to go or to do, I should say. To be honest, it wasn't really my thing. It took me maybe until about junior year until I was finally like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I know it'll make my mom proud. But it wasn't until about that junior year that I actually started to be happy about the fact that I was where I was in the major that I was in, which was exercise science. Eventually, I did have such a love for it that exercise science was one of the largest foundations to where I am now. And it was just about studying the body, studying the mind, the physiological adaptations that we go through when it comes to stress. That can be stress from food, that can be stress from exercise, especially obviously, or physical performance. It just continued on. And when you talk exercise, you have to speak behavior because exercise is a behavior. That's eventually how I got to the point I'm in now, because everything they trained me how to do, other than the effects of the chronic diseases that we face, osteoporosis, hypertension, diabetes. These are the things that I studied. But beyond that, again, it's all shifted by behavior changes. That was kind of really some of the beginnings, other than, I guess, when I was a child. And I got into that space really by accident. I just kind of just ran out of options. That's really what happened. I could look at it as, okay, I ran out of options, or I can look at it as it was just fated for me to kind of be in this particular path. What got me out was sometime after college, I ended up getting the job, ended up working for a company where I was super duper fortunate. After my first couple internships, I was super duper fortunate. Other than that, it went on to this company, and I was working for this company, and it was great because it was a startup company. And there was only one guy ahead of me, and he was kind of set to burn out. And that's exactly what happened. Once he did that and he burned out, it was just me and the owner. And it was just like, wow, like, am I really this lucky? Like, I got the job, quote unquote, that people would hope for, right? Ended up working my way to a salary, starting from just a basic hourly pay, part-time, worked to the salary, ended up owning a location. And we ended up opening 2-3 more locations while I was there. Eventually, 2016, during this time frame, and it was August 31st, very hard to forget because it was my sister's birthday. And this is what eventually got me to go ahead and exit the States, because on that same day, I witnessed a man die. And that was just a scenario. It wasn't a natural cause. I guess I'll leave it to there for the time being. It was just part of our environment. That just got me to really kick into gear. And I was like, the guy died between me and my roommate at the time. I'm talking arm's length.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. And I didn't even know that he got hit during this particular drive-by. I had no clue until after, maybe, I don't know, 15 minutes later, when the hysteria started to kind of calm down and I went back to kind of retrieve my roommate. It wasn't until the next day that I really registered, oh my God, that guy was arm's length in between me and my roommate, and the one guy arm's length in between us got hit. It just let me know, it had me realize like, wow, like that could have been me. The car was driving. So it's like, it's not, I just had this notion in my mind that it's like, there's no way that this guy's aim was so perfect that he hit exactly the person they wanted to hit within these 4 shots that went off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of considered myself lucky in that moment. And beyond that, it was this fire in me really just kind of started to wake up, and this mantra, pull the trigger, kind of was born. And for me, it was just turning that situation into the positive. And it was just like, look, I want it, go get it. And it was that simple. And for me, one of my goals was always, from before I can remember, I'm talking infant, I wanted to travel the world. It was just that simple. And at the time, I didn't really have the motivation, the means, or the support behind me or even the friends around me that were thinking about traveling the world. And honestly, for me at that point, I wasn't thinking about it either. But California was another one of my dreams. But 4 days later, my dad he was in town for my sister's birthday. And normally he's in the army, so he's traveling around a lot. He was like, yeah, I'm going to California in about 4 days. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, you want to come? And that was my first time that far. The furthest I've been was Texas, which is where I was born. From there, it was like, I'm going. And I booked a ticket 4 days later. And it was that same pull the trigger mentality, because it was just like, look, like whatever money I did have in my bank account, it wouldn't really matter, would it? And I didn't have a lot at that point. I really didn't. And so, yeah, I went to California, and I'm just there. And I was like, oh my God, like, I mean, the West Coast to the East Coast is so different. Anybody listening to this would know, like, there's a massive difference in the United States. It's actually very, very far. It's further than anybody, I think, can fathom until you really leave the country. And then you start being able to put into perspective how big the U.S. really, really is, which is another reason why I think it's easy to stay trapped in the U.S. But from there, I went to Cali, and I was just like, I want this. That's all I had. I was like, I want this. And I went out for lunch, and I met a friend. Actually, it wasn't a friend then, but I met a stranger who became a friend. From there, they were telling me all about San Diego, which was the complete opposite of San Francisco, where I was. And I was like, wow, like this part, San Francisco seems amazing, and you're making San Diego sound even better. And I was like, I want that. And that was like the next thing. And then, it kind of just went from this desire of like, I want this, I want this, I want this. It just came to this point where like, I just wanted to be alive. Everything I wanted to do, I wanted to do it with life, with vigor, with passion, because it was like, well, I could have been gone. And it was just that simple. And it wasn't the first time that I could have been gone. It was just the last straw for me. Mm-hmm. For me, it was like, this is it. Like, I mean, there's too many different moments that can end in these phenomenons. Because when you think about it, it's like, it's a phenomenon. It's like, it wasn't until I left the States, and until I left the U.S. that I started realizing that, like, so many near-death experiences are not normal for your average kid. And I really felt like it was normal. And that was a problem.
That is a problem. It's because we look at the mortality rate for young Black men in this country, that longevity is not as long as our other counterparts. When you put that all in perspective, and you had it front and center in that incident, it's completely understandable how that served as the impetus for you in your journey. So when you made that decision to leave the States, where did you decide to go for your first journey?
What got me the lick on the international experience was living in San Diego. It took me about a year from that shooting to actually get to San Diego. And it took a whole bunch of hardships that everybody will face in any given year. 2020 is a prime example. I was close to the Mexican border, living in San Diego. It took only 15 minutes to get there from my home. Really the kickoff. That was the kickoff to the international experience, because it's like, wow, like, I can literally walk across an international border. And I had some friends that came with me, and it was just such a phenomenon for me just to see living in San Diego. I mean, quite frankly, I was living on a coast where it's like, all you see is money. All you see are fancy cars and big homes. And, you see the life that you think that you would see on the TV. And to cross Mexico, and then 15 minutes later, it's like, whoa, the buildings are shattered. The roads are destroyed. And it was like you went into a third world country, but in 15 minutes away. And it blew my mind. But the feeling was everything for me. I was actually in the middle of like just a little gathering and everybody's, socializing, and I just actually pulled my journal out. I literally pulled my journal out and I started journaling. I just couldn't forget that feeling. It was the first time, even though it was 15 minutes from San Diego, it was just the first time I crossed, and the whole culture, you can tell people were literally speaking Spanish, right? The prices literally dropped drastically. And that was that first experience. And once I got that lick, I actually went back again one more time. It just let me know like this is going to happen. But again, those are just a couple hours of a trip. That though, it gave me this inspiration where Thailand was the first real move. And that was a drastic one. And that was me taking 2 weeks. I just booked a ticket. I was working at a bar at the time in San Diego, and I had clients, and the client part was easy. I was training people on the beach and doing some life coaching online. That part was easy because it's like I can keep doing that, right? Anywhere I go. That's why I set it up that way. The bartending, I didn't even care. I was like, look, this is a great job, but I'm buying this ticket first, and we're going to ask it when I get to work on the next shift, because I found a ticket for $400. So $400 round trip.
Wow.
Yo. And this is the best part, right? Like all my tickets are like this. I think people,
That's amazing.
like really, like all my tickets are like this. I'm buying tickets and I'm traveling to different countries sometimes for $15. I'm traveling to different countries for $50.
Wow. That's
I could
incredible.
it is incredible. I'm in Colombia right now and I can pay $30 and I can get to the coast. You know what I mean? Like I'm not actually at the coast. I can buy a plane ticket right now for $30 and I can fly to the coast in 45 minutes to an hour. And that's insane, because if you're buying a ticket from anywhere in the US, you're automatically paying like a bare minimum of $100 to $200, even if it's next door, $200 minimum, even if you went from Connecticut to New York.
Exactly.
And that's insane.
You drive and you go over the bridge, is like $15. So, I mean, you can easily spend $30 and not go very far in the US. So just to hear what you can do in Colombia is, for the comparison, it's just amazing.
No, it really is. This weekend I'm gonna go. I'm taking a vacation. I need a vacation. This weekend I'm gonna go to it's about 2 hours away, a place called San Rafael. I'm gonna buy me some camping gear. And when I say buy me some camping gear, I'm talking like you can pay $100, you can get yourself a tent and a sleeping bag, which is insane. Like, I mean, to literally go survive in the woods. I'm going to go take that 3-4 days, and the place is 2 hours away. I mean, the ticket is to get there and back to my city. It's about 3.5 hours away to get to this place called San Rafael / Guatape, and back. It's only going to cost me $15 to get there and back.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, it's insane. I don't understand. Anybody again listening is like, if you're stressing out and you just wish you can live a life where, you do what you really want to do, and you're not worried about the finances to do it, leave the country.
Absolutely.
Leave the US.
Yeah, because, there's so much opportunity, and a lot of people get stuck on thinking that they need to have the same amount of money that they need in order to live in the US. But, you illustrated so well how you don't. Like, there are things that you can do to make money. There are, whether it's bartending, out of the box things that you've come up with, but it's enabled you to have a richer lifestyle in a lot of ways, because it's not necessarily related to dollars and cents. It's about improved quality of life.
Exactly. That's what it is.
Along that line of quality of life, I want to segue into your work as a spiritual healer. Tell me a bit about that, because I know you started it off with talking about, your education in college, and about the physiology of the body and mind connection, and why that's important. It sounds like that laid the foundation for your evolution as a spiritual healer. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It did lay the foundation. The primary reason why is, if we're talking spiritual, we need to also understand anything physical is created from the spiritual space first, and then it moves into our mind, and then our mind perceives something that creates a physical object. That's literally the way it goes. Like you have a spirit and you create even money. Prime example, okay? Because people are always concerned about money. Even money is created from a spiritual place. It's created from a spiritual knowing and security within yourself. And when I say spiritual, I do mean self. That's the simplest way. You know, I think sometimes people, they hear spiritual and they kind of run away like, what's doing magic or, witchcraft or whatever. I don't know what people think all the time, but at the end of the day, spirituality, in my personal definition, it just means self. Literally, just knowing yourself. Obviously, you can extend that and, there's more to spirituality as a whole, but just the simplest way to put it. And so what is the number one thing that I, at this point in time, do for people? I help them remove the physical ailments, the physical barriers that they think exist by rewiring some of those mental patterns. And then that allows them to access that abundance that they so seek. So it's almost I just reverse the order. That's it. Spirituality, and a lot of people, it's only blocked because they have so many physical ailments. And quite frankly, that was where some of the foundation has come. When I learned in some of my pharmacology classes back in college, how we're legally allowed to lie to people through marketing and advertisement. Legally. Mm-hmm. We can legally say this is an excellent source of protein. And it's like, well, what's an excellent source of protein? Well, it's not even always a lie. But the definition of an excellent source of protein is actually only meaning that there's up to 15% of that excellent source of protein in this particular product. Up to. Not necessarily 15%, but it's like 15% is nothing when you're talking about nutrition.
It's
nothing.
True.
They say you see this on the bottle all the time, a good source of protein. Well, that's only 5 to 10% of the protein being a good source. That leaves 90% of that protein source being a fake product. This is the problem.
What I love about my journey and time abroad is that I eat way better when I'm not in the US. I'm more physically active. My food source is richer. I don't need as many meals. I can eat far less and be sustained and satiated because of the quality of the food. And it doesn't surprise me that over the course of several decades, when you look at the physicality of people that live in the U.S., their sedentary lifestyle, mostly in an office environment where they go from meeting room to meeting room or sit at a desk in a cubicle all day, of course, pre-COVID, active. So all of these things, it's a compound effect. And you're right, then that manifests into and exacerbates more physical conditions. With that, let's take it in a different direction, because I think there's something that you said really is spot on, because it's all about the definition. So when you think about physical abilities and limitations that people have in their spiritual mind blocks, I would argue that it also comes through with the mindset and being able to see a way and a path forward to moving abroad. Their physical limitation isn't so much about their body as much as it is their physical environment. Have you found that to be true with some of the people that you've worked with?
I mean, it's a major contributor. It's a major contributor. It might even be the first barrier. But at this point, it's no longer an excuse, because we live in a digital age. And the reality is people listening to your podcast right now, they've seen plenty of live examples of Black entrepreneurs doing their thing. Not only that, but they see Black people. And I don't want to leave it just at Black people, just in general. Anyone looking to leave the US, they see people are doing it. Before, if I decided to go live in Colombia, take a bus, travel to San Rafael, pay $15 to get on a plane, you would never know any of this. You would never see any of this. So you didn't know what's possible. And it comes to the classic Roger Bannister story, breaking the 4-minute mile. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But now I do believe strongly that many environments in the U.S. are set up like a golden cage. And this does go across all races. It's a golden cage. And what do I mean by a golden cage? I learned this when I was in Thailand. And it's not until you leave the cage that it's not locked. this is the thing, right? Like this golden cage is not locked. You have the key. The door is actually open, but you don't think you need to leave because it's like, I live in the best place in the world. Everybody wants to come to the US.
With where you are now, do you see yourself staying in Medellin, or do you see yourself traveling and spending time somewhere else on your journey?
I'm building right now. As a part of that, I'm staying in Medellin. I just got my visa extended. The only other thing that I'm really, really interested in doing is going back to Africa. And I've only been to the north. I've only been to Morocco. And though it counts, it's Morocco. And there's more of a Spanish influence and a French influence in Morocco than there is an African influence. When I say this, I'm thinking the Kenya, the Zimbabwe. I do want to go to South Africa. It's not like top of my list, but I'm really looking to bring it back to Africa. I've never been deeper than Morocco, which is only at the top northwest corner of Africa. But that's my next trip. And for me, like, I'm not about hopping around too much, quite frankly. I go to a place. If I like it, I stay. If I don't like it, then yeah, I'll go. I'll go. But generally, my intuition doesn't really lead me wrong. And I end up in the places that I really want to be in, the places that feed my soul, and the places that just helps me grow as a person, and somewhere I feel comfortable, somewhere I feel safe. And these are, for me, some of the requirements when I do go somewhere. So for me, it's not about being a tourist. I don't really do tourist things. But that's where I'm at.
With that, when you think about, your journey, whether it be to Mexico or to the continent of Africa, do you see your spiritual healing practice being a part of how you sustain yourself financially there, or are you in this period and season of evolution?
For me, it's never going to end because it's just who I am. Like, this isn't something that I do to make a dollar. This is something that I love. And it took me a long time. It took a lot of quote unquote, I can't even say wrong turns. It took a whole bunch of turns, because they're not wrong. They weren't right. It took a whole bunch of turns. But at this point now, for me, the natal readings, I'm not sure you're familiar. I created like this way to create a spiritual blueprint for people. It's been what has brought me the most joy. I mean, when you can teach a person where they should just kind of stray away from, because look, this is just not your personality. And this is why you're facing so much force all the time. That's awesome when you can teach somebody to make money by just relieving stress, or I don't want to say find love, but to create the love within themselves. These things are amazing when you can help somebody create that love within themselves, and that helps them attract the love that they've been searching for prior. Here are the things they're gonna hurt that process for you. And this is where the natal readings coming in, and what is your style of communication and your intellectual processing like? All of these things are just certain subcategories that people come to me for these natal readings, and I'm able to help guide them through, just so the listeners know what it is. At the end of the day, it's just me studying the stars. And for me, this is why I'm so excited as a scientist. As a scientist is my background in college, right? So it's like when I can find things that I can ground in, something tangible, because again, spirituality is everything at the same time, not tangible, but we live in a tangible world. We live in a 3D world. And so when people can't see something, you do always get that crowd that just doesn't believe. This is why I really love the natal readings, because it's like, what? Jupiter is where it is. And when you were born, and if I took a snapshot of the time you were born, and Jupiter was in a certain zodiac and it was in a certain house, it's going to have a certain influence on you. That does not mean that you don't have your own free will, but it does show how the cycles in your life repeats. And everybody does recognize and knows about the cycles repeating in their life. Or a lot of times they're completely unaware. And sometimes when they are aware, they still don't do anything different, and they just keep spinning in a circle anyways. It just helps people make more sense of things, because once I learned that life works in cycles, and it's like you can miss a cycle. This is the reality. You can repeat that cycle if you missed it. If you missed, windows of opportunities, I had to learn, they do close, and they don't stay open or closed when you want them open or when you want them closed. They move on their own pace. And it's almost like, this is one of the reasons why really love natal readings and just being able to study the stars, because it's like the sun is the sun. You can see it rise, you can see it fall. The moon is the moon. It has impacts on our emotions. And when you start recognizing what zodiac sign lies in that, you can start anticipating, okay, look, just should not buy this home right now. Because quite frankly, my coach is telling me about let's just say, for an example, my coach is telling me about the planetary alignment. He's like, look, like I'm in an extremely emotional space right now. If I was to wait 2 more weeks, I can make this decision with a clear mind, not being influenced by something that's greater than me. I mean, I'm not stronger than the moon. This is the truth. Like no matter how we want to slice and dice it, you don't have more power than the moon. You're not stronger than the sun that feeds all of Earth and nourishes the planet, including you. So it's like when you just learn how, and when I teach people how to get more in alignment with the cycles that are occurring, it doesn't scare you anymore. You don't start blaming Mercury retrograde. Oh, Mercury retrograde is happening. That's why, me and my ex-girlfriend broke up, or Mercury retrograde happened, and this is why this happened. And it's like people want to start blaming these moments. It's like, no, it's like, look, again, Mercury is a planet, and again, it's way bigger than you, and it has much more influence than people are aware about. And this is where I'm able to really, really help with a craft that is I'm so passionate about.
Oh my goodness. You just gave me chills. And that's why I just love being, virtually in your space, because you are so deep and you explained it so well. And I think the reason why it's so important is because a lot of people are, like you said, not as aware of patterns, right? Just like the evolution, the planetary evolution, the sun, the seasons, right? Our lives also go in those cycles. And so being attuned to that will help you break free of patterns. And that's particularly important when you're thinking about moving abroad, because you have to get your why right. Because otherwise, if you're running from something without doing the work and the mindset shift, then you're just going to be bringing that from one geographic location to another, thinking that just moving on its own will be your solve, and it's not.
Eso. And Espanol, this is exactly what they say. They go, eso. And it's like, that's it. You got it. That's it. And they get super excited. I just had to share that.
Yeah, no. Like I said, I literally have chills right now. So I love that. So as we wrap up, I know that you have a free guide that you have for our listeners. So I'll give you a moment to talk about that, and then also where people can find you.
So as for finding me, quite frankly, YouTube is my favorite channel. It's where I'm able to practice my creativity and really educate. Okay. I love YouTube better because I can educate. And I look at YouTube as like the new university, because people aren't going to, just personal opinion. Okay. I got to say that, sit there on the record. People aren't going to university anymore. And if and when they do, they're not as excited as thinking it's the only option. We grew up prior thinking that, university, college was the only option A. And that's just not reality anymore. The world is moving so fast. You're able to learn all the same things, maybe not to the same depth as you would with having a 4-year education, a 4-year degree, because you're being forced to sit for 4 years. But it's like the world's moving fast. And it's like one of the ways that I'm educating people, quite frankly, is through YouTube. And if they were to type in my name, Pernell Bobby, I'm sure they can see that somewhere on this interview. That's where I'm asking you to support me. If you're looking to support a Black entrepreneur, go ahead, hit that subscribe, because that's one of the ways that I look to monetize. Beyond that, what you're getting in the free guide that I sent you is actually called Movement Reborn. And I did this with another Black entrepreneur of mine. His name is Simit. And I did a co-collaboration with him, and I created this PDF document, and the entire document is clickable. I literally mean you can click everything. It took me weeks to create, and I really put my heart and put my soul into it. It's one of the first projects I did while I was in Thailand. I had the opportunity to just blow some time, to just try things that I actually wanted to do, and not just do something that I had to just make money to keep paying my bills, but to just have time and space where I'm not worried about money anymore, to do something I was passionate about. Essentially, movement is medicine. I'm an exercise scientist and spiritual healer. Great. All that stuff, when it comes to some of the things that I teach people how to do, if it's not through studying astrology, some of the actual work, the tangible work, is to move, because it is medicine. All different type of dis-ease. When people are not at ease, this is all it is. We look at disease as something that, we can't cure. I need this medication. And it's a false. Dr. Sebi was one of the first people to really, really prove that. And I really fell behind some of his teachings. And I want to continue that mission of his. In there, I gave people an exercise regimen. Again, you can click, you can see the videos, you can see how it's done, you can get the explanation. It's completely free. Okay. I've charged people for this. I've made a living off of this. There is magic within the melanin, and people know that when I say it. You might get chills when you hear it. You can go ahead and you can book a natal reading with me. By the time this interview comes out, I'm going to tell you right now, those prices will not be the same, but I'll find a way, whoever's on this podcast of yours, if they mention your name when you reach out, I'll make sure to give you a discount, just to go ahead and extend the love. She's doing this service for you guys just because she loves it, and she's getting you to exit the U.S. And these natal readings are another thing that's going to get you to exit the U.S. Getting your body moving more frequently is going to get you to exit the U.S. Everything that, quite frankly, I stand for is partially about getting you to exit the U.S. only because it removes the mental blocks that so many Black people face in the U.S.
Absolutely. And I am so delighted that you created this guide and are making this available to our Blaxit Global community. And I encourage people to download the guide in the show notes, and then also to reach out to Pernell, because gosh, like I said, when I started this conversation, you are a whole vibe. And everything that you said, it just illuminated so many things, even in this conversation. So I'm hoping that as people listen to this, that not only do they find inspiration with what you said, but also take action, right? Because that's where the magic happens. So Pernell, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the Blaxit Global podcast, and I look forward to the next phase of your journey. Thank you for listening to the Blaxit Global Podcast. For more information on today's episode, be sure to visit our website at blaxitglobal.com. Has this episode left you feeling inspired to begin your journey, but not quite sure where to start? Download our free guide with the top 5 questions you need to ask before planning your Blaxit. You can find that under the resources tab of our website. Remember, it's not only possible to live out your dreams unbothered and in full color, it is your birthright. Are you trying to sort out health plans, banking, VPN, and other connectivity for your move abroad? Well, have no fear, we've got you with the Move Abroad Starter Kit. Get yours today at blaxitglobal.com/resources. That's blaxitglobal.com/resources.